Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Clockedin with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Clockedin with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. We have Jay Fairbrother. He's a serial entrepreneur, a coach, and a consultant with 30 plus years of experience in starting, scaling, and buying and selling seven-figure businesses. He's helped hundreds of coaches scale their businesses as a coach, business advisor, and turnaround consultant. He's a licensed sales coach and a peer group facilitator. Jay is also an executive VP of chapters for Global Leaders Organization, GLO for short. And his job is to recruit chairs to start new chapters all over the world. Jay's story includes losing everything in 2010 financial crisis and rising from the ashes. With the Profit Architects and GLO, he has fulfilled his dream of spending every day hanging out with and helping entrepreneurs scale their companies and become better leaders. Jay, how are we doing today?
Hey,
Excited
Jordan.
to have you on.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So where does your story start? Where does all this start?
Well, that's a long time ago. So about 30 some years ago, I left my cushy job with benefits and started my first company, which was a fundraising business. And my journey was very similar to most entrepreneurs that I've ever met. In that, when you start a company, it's all about growth, right? It's more leads, more clients, more revenue. And then the next thing you know, you've got more problems, more headaches, more overhead. So in my case, for instance, my first company, I grew it to 50 employees. My ego was pretty good at that point. I grew it to 5 million in sales. I kind of had some swagger, but I really wasn't making any money to speak of. I was, at 5 million in sales, I was just barely making six figures. I hadn't had a vacation in 5 years. The business was running me, and that's a very typical entrepreneur journey that most end up in, that I call the growth rut. Fortunately, I figured some things out. And by the time I hit 200 employees, we were very profitable, and I sold that business a few years later.
Incredible.
So, yeah, that's kind of my start. I was very successful with my first business. I think you mentioned in the intro, I've had, the Profit Architects, my current coaching company, is my 9th business. So it's not too difficult to do that math and figure out that while I've had some decent success, I've also had some massive failures. So.
Yeah, but we got to learn from the failures, and the success allows us to continue on. That's what keeps us going.
I always tell entrepreneurs that, if you're looking to hire ever a business coach or business advisor, doesn't have to be me, but make sure you hire one who has failed as at least maybe not as much as they succeeded, but you've got to have those failures. You learn so much more from that than actually your successes.
Absolutely. So you end up selling this first business. Incredible. Congrats. And then where does that take you? Because most people would end up, were you hanging out on an island? Were you just relaxing? Was it over?
So during the 12 years that I built that business, I actually had a couple other businesses on the side that I started. So I kind of got that entrepreneurial bug pretty early on. and have always been a serial entrepreneur, typically with more than one business going at a time. So after I sold that first company, I did take a year off. I just played. I studied the stock market. I just started making investments, and then I got bored and I bought a couple businesses and. So I did many things. I did some consulting as well during that time. And then, it was, a few years later when the 2008 financial crisis began. And that was kind of a slow trickle for me over the next few years. And basically, at the end of it, I lost everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I, without exaggeration, went from being a multimillionaire living in a mansion to living in my friend's basement and didn't even own a car. I mean, complete and total wipeout. And, now I just say like, okay, I might be a decent entrepreneur, but I'm a really shitty investor.
How does that, so I think how does that happen? Like, cause I mean, were you over leveraged? Did you put in like too many different investment? Like, what was it? Because like right now, as we're recording this, times are very uncertain. Like this week, crypto's been down, stocks have been down, real estate's high, interest rates keep going up. And like, I'm not saying like, tell us what to do, but it's more like from your experience, what would you have done differently? What would you have had more cat? Like,
Yeah.
what was the situation?
So it was a combination of factors that, I mean, look, I'm not the only one that lost everything in that period.
Oh no, it was very scary for many people.
Yeah.
People lost jobs. A lot of people lost a lot.
Right.
But I think because you're open about it and willing to share, it's just there's so much value that can be extracted from that.
Yeah. So, I thought I was fairly well diversified. I'm sure a conservative investor would have looked at what I was doing and going, "You're nuts." This is, but in my mind, I knew I had a couple of risky plays. Like, there was a singular natural gas well that I invested in. And then I had a consortium of natural gas wells. This was at a time when the guys that I invested with in that partnership were driving Lamborghinis because natural gas had been killing it, for years. And, again, no one saw that natural gas was going to dive as a result of, what was happening in 2008 with the real estate bubble and the stock market and stuff. No one even saw that part coming. So it was things like that. I did have some business investments. I had, a bunch of money in the stock market. And it was just like, the thing, unlike what's happening now where, with like crypto that, it could disappear overnight. This was more like watching a very slow toilet bowl drain. And it was, I could see it happening, but there was nothing I could do about it. And because of other things that were happening in my life at that time, like instead of, if people had just left their money in the stock market, then, now everything would be great. But I wasn't able to do that. So as the stock market's crashing, I'm having to pull money out to fund other things that are crashing, to take money out. So, to do capital calls on these natural gas wells, which it was just, it was just this confluence of events that that just over time just took me down.
Yeah. Wow. It's just because I mean, every year and everything happens, but people want to build up and become stronger and more resilient in whatever way. But what do you think from that you learned, like this time around and like next time?
It's funny because I'm not sure how much I would have done differently. I mean, you could argue that I could have, put my money in a safe stock market conservative place, but that's just not my personality. I'm just not the type of personality to just kind of sit there and watch, my money grow at 8% or 9% or whatever. So, like I said, some of the things I did were risky. One lesson for sure is that I'll never have a partner again. One of the things I did at that time was I basically bought this ultra luxury travel company where we did crazy trips, with renting, private villas on private islands and castles in Europe, and flying in chefs from all over the world, and flying in butlers from England, and police escorted limo rides and those kinds of things. It was a lot of fun. But I had a partner in the business who, basically screwed me, and I lost a huge sum of money, over a few years in that investment. So be very careful about getting in bed with somebody as a partner. It's one thing if you're bootstrapping and starting with nothing. But like what I've learned about marriage is get a prenup for any business partnership that you form, because truly that's the pain point with partnerships, is when things don't go well and you're trying to break them up and dissolve them. So in my case, one of my lessons, no more partners.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. Because when you start to think about it, it's like the investments, some of them need money to keep going on. Like when you own a business, you need to keep financing it or it goes bankrupt. Where if it was like a real estate and commercial real estate group, it's like they're not going to come ask you for more money. Like they might ask you for another investment. It's just different.
Yeah, well, actually, that did happen to me. I had a condo investment in Florida that was in the process of being built, and when everything started crashing, they were asking you for more. They did a capital call to finish the project, or else walk away, and I couldn't do the capital call. It was excruciating.
See, this is learning for me, because I sit here and I just assume, I'm like, well, that's just how the process works. That's what it is. Like, but when you've seen a lot more and you understand a lot more, you get to this point of, wow, there's a lot we can do differently. Like there's ways to protect yourself and there's ways to grow.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. So you end up going through all this. And then when did you realize that you're like, I got to do a restart. I gotta pull this together, because I feel like it can be a very scaring and trying time. Like, you know what I mean? It was not
a fun time. So, this part that I'm about to share, I'm not real proud of, but it took me a long time. I spent a number of years in what I call the cellar of shame. And I really withdrew from the most of the entrepreneurial contacts and connections and network that I had built for 20 some years. I just withdrew because I was ashamed. I was, I didn't have the money to play with them like I used to, to just not worry about it and drop a few $100 going out for a night. And so it was a very difficult period for me. I wish that I could say, oh yeah, I bounced right back and, brushed it off my shoulder and went on. I probably still have PTSD issues from that whole experience. But I at some point, it was actually years later, when something personal happened that really even put me in, believe it or not, a lower place than that whole thing. And I really, was struggling with, what do I grasp on to here to keep going? Yeah. And at this point, my kids are grown and successful. So, it's not like I can, if you had little kids, you can always go there and say, I need to be, So, but what I grabbed onto, and it wasn't some, big, bright, shining light in the sky. But I just came back to, I just got to get back to hanging out with and helping entrepreneurs. And that was the epiphany, right? It was no more detailed than that. I just need to get back to hanging out with and helping entrepreneurs. Because that's the core of who I've built my identity around. And it's also what I'm good at.
Yeah.
I've been in entrepreneurial organizations. We're going to talk about GLO in a minute, but I've been in those kinds of entrepreneurial organizations for 20 some years and been in peer groups with groups of 9 to 10 entrepreneurs every month for 25 years, multiple of those peer groups. And, that's really where I shine, is being able to help other entrepreneurs look at issues in different ways, identify things that they can, strategic ways that they can change their business and help scale it. So at any rate, long answer to the question, but it took a while. And then, after I had that, I just got to get back to doing this. That's when, I finally kind of rehung my shingle as the Profit Architects, and to get back in full time into the business coaching and business advising.
Wow, it really fascinating what you said regarding you had a group of friends. You had, because everyone's like, even if I go to zero, I still have my network, and my network can help me, and my network can bring me back. But you have to be open to that point of, hey, I'm here, and my pants are down. Like, there's nothing I can do. Like, I want, like, I need help. Like, you know what I mean? And like, no one ever talks about that part. It's all like, oh, you have a network, like, you're fine, like, they'll help you, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, when you're actually like struggling, no one brings that up. So I appreciate the vulnerability there.
Well, it's especially hard for entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, when everyone handles everything.
Yeah, our egos are usually pretty large. We're type A personalities. We don't like anyone telling us what to do or when to do it. And so, asking for help as an entrepreneur can be very difficult. And in my case, I'm fortunate because of those organizations that I was involved with, and those peer groups, is that I learned that, you can ask for help. And, thank God I had that that peer group at that time and that network, because, the guy's basement I lived in for 5 months was, one of those peer groups that I, knew this guy for 15 years, hanging out together every month.
Wow. Yeah. There's such a power in, when you say peer groups, masterminds, all of that dynamic, in which case people come together, they're not part of the same business, but they have business connotations, but it could be around anything. But it allows you to get different perspectives on different groups. That's why people set up boards. That's why people do a lot of different stuff. Yeah. It allows you to see it from different angles.
Yeah. Well, you hit on something there too, that, while there's value in like a industry mastermind where everybody's in the same industry, to me, there's much more power in just the opposite. I remember my first peer group I ever got in, the first meeting I went to, I left that meeting going, oh my God, I found my tribe. Like, it was finally, I met some people that I can actually talk to and understand what I'm going through every day. But there was a guy, I was in the fundraising business. There was a guy in my group who was in the concrete business. And, I left that meeting thinking, well, this is a mismatch. You know what I mean? Like, our businesses are so just polar opposite different that, I don't think I'll ever learn anything from him, and he probably won't learn anything from me. But once you're in these groups for a while, and what we're working with and helping entrepreneurs, you start to realize that we all have the same problems. We have people problems, we have cash flow problems, we have sales and marketing problems, we have process problems. Those are universal to every entrepreneur, regardless of your industry, size, the scope of your business. And that's one of the powers of being in these peer groups, is to be in a room with other entrepreneurs who are going to think completely outside of your box and challenge you in ways that if you were just sitting in a room with people in your industry, even, non-competitive people in the industry, most of the time that industry think it's all along the same lines. It's like, how do we copy what others are doing in the industry instead of, well, why don't you look at it like this or, this way, which is not something you ever would have thought of.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's completely out of left field. And, but they're so used to it in their space that they handle it that way. And I think you brought up something super powerful, is that if you don't have one of these peer groups, you should probably go look for one. And it doesn't even have to be in, like, even if you have a regular job, like, no matter what you do, to get outside perspectives on what you're doing from actual viable people. And by viable people, I mean, like, everyone's a viable person, but like someone who's been there, done that before, it gives you a perspective of, wow, it really opens your eyes to the opportunity that there is.
Yeah. So when I make the comment, I found my tribe, I mean, entrepreneurism is a lonely business, because, your friends who aren't entrepreneurs don't really get the pressure and what you're going through. You can't really talk to your family, even your significant other. I mean, you can't really come home to your significant other and, hi, honey, how was your day? Well, if we don't, find some money here in the next 2 weeks, I'm not going to meet payroll and the whole thing's going to come crashing down. That's not a conversation you're typically having with your significant other, because you don't want to pass on that fear.
You don't want to burden. Yeah. You don't want to burden the stress.
Exactly. Right. So, finding that group of other entrepreneurs is critical. And I will say one thing, not all masterminds are equal. You need a very good facilitator and you need very good structure. I've seen cases of masterminds, and I've talked to people who've been in some masterminds that are, just kind of loose. That, sometimes they end up just being like, you're sitting around bullshitting about business and having cocktails. That's not a true mastermind. I mean, what should happen in these meetings is they should be very structured. The ones that we have always used and use in GLO, are, there's protocols, there's structure, and your sole purpose is there to help each other grow each other's businesses and become better entrepreneurs. So it's not a social club. It's not a networking thing. It's not about, hey, you got any leads for me today?
Yeah. It's very, very different. And the thing I think that you brought up earlier is like, how can we all connect? It's because that emotional rapport, like from going to the group multiple times, everyone knows each other and everyone feels comfortable with each other. And even more importantly, everyone trusts each other. If everyone trusts each other, then it comes to the space of, oh, dude, maybe you can introduce me to this guy, or maybe I can help you with your business here. I can do this, or whatever it is.
Right.
That trust is built up enough to the point of, oh, Jay, like, I've known Jay for 15 years. Like, come on, like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? And no one thinks about it in that way, but it's like you're doing deposits into this group each and every week you go. So it makes a stronger and stronger connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of the people I've been in those peer groups with are, my longest lifelong friends at this point. And trust is absolutely critical, as is confidentiality. And what happens over time, you described it actually very well and accurately, is that there's a lot of business that ends up being done, but it's not, it's not from, hey, I need more business. Can you help me kind of thing. It's, it happens organically. So yeah, the peer groups like that, if they're well run, I would trade them in for all the books, courses, videos, conferences, all the business stuff you can absorb. Otherwise, get in a peer group and it'll change your life.
Absolutely. So let's dive into it. What did, so you're down and then you have this epiphany about entrepreneurship and you want to help these entrepreneurs and guide them in building bigger businesses. So what is Profit Architects? Like, where did it come from, and what do you guys do today, and how do you like it? Yeah.
So it stems from that story I told about, the rut that I see most entrepreneurs get into, where it's all about growth and the business is running them. And so I work with 6 and 7 figure businesses, with the focus on creating more profit. Now, there's a lot of people who have an issue with profit, meaning they have like mental, trash and mental blocks around, profit. There's a lot of people who went into business to serve and help others. So the first thing is get your head around the fact that profits are not a bad thing. When we talk about profits, it's not only talking about putting money in your pocket. It could be, taking those profits and reinvesting them in the business in a smart way to help you scale and create the entrepreneurial dream lifestyle that you wanted to have when you started a business. So that's the first step, is sort of a mindset shift. I actually have an exercise on my website that you can download called Find Your Profit Why. And it's along the lines of like Simon Sinek and Know Your Why, which is critically important. And I kind of take it a step further and say, all right, let's start talking about your profit why. Okay, imagine you had all this profit. What are you going to do with it? Do you want to finally take that fancy vacation? That's fine. Knock yourself out. You want to just stick it in your pocket and put it in crypto. Whatever you want to do with it is fine. Or use those profits. But the point is that nothing happens, certainly not ever the sale of your business, without profits. And it's difficult to grow without profits. Usually, if you don't have enough profit, you end up being leveraged and you're borrowing money to help scale your growth. And it's just, it's a mess. So what I do with my clients there is I'll sit down, we do a deep dive. We look at like 40 some areas of the business, and we go through this list of 40 items and say, okay, are you doing this? No. Okay. Add it to the list. Are you doing this? No. Add it to the list. Or I'm sorry, are you doing this? Yes, but not well. Add it to the list. Are you doing this? Yes. Okay. We don't need that on the list. So, and what you end up hoping at the end of that deep dive is to come up with 8 or 12 items that you can either start doing or improve drastically. And then you rank those items based on least cost and effort, highest impact, profit impact. That goes on the top of the list. And then you just work the way down and then put a timeline to that list. And it becomes literally a coaching blueprint that you use to help the entrepreneur scale.
Oh, that's awesome. And what are some of these items on this list? Would it be like sales, marketing, hiring, or is it like kind of like
it covers everything? So we look at costs, we look at processes, and those kinds of things. But I'd say 70% of it is geared around sales and marketing. Just do you have a funnel in place and a follow up protocols with your clients and reactivation protocols and that kind of stuff. We look at pricing, and we look at the sales system, the sales people, because one of the things, and I also do this as kind of an offshoot, is I work. The past couple of years, I've worked with over 100 speakers, coaches, and consultants on helping them improve their sales process and sales one-on-one calls, because a lot of those people are experts in some field and they have no sales training, no interest in being good at sales, but they also aren't very good at it and are fearful of it. And in that industry too, where it's all mostly online marketing and your process is all online, everybody's really good at measuring the statistics, at the top and middle of the funnel, meaning they know how many visits they got, they know how many clicks they got, they know how many opt-ins they got, percentages, they know all these off the top of their head, right? But when you ask them, well, okay, you get in front of 10 people on a sales call at the end of the whole thing, what's your, how many of those do you convert? And they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. Nobody pays attention to that. So I call it what's leaking out of your funnel. So that's another important area to look at with businesses. Is a lot of businesses kind of feel like, okay, well, our sales results is what we get at the end. It's the best our salespeople can do. So they start going back and, well, let's tweak our marketing. Let's and in fact, their sales could be drastically improved. So anyway,
Yeah. So you're essentially saying that a good amount of the time, everything can be improved upon, of course, but we also have to shine the spotlight on ourselves and saying, are you actually converting? Are your salespeople actually converting? Can they improve and go from a 1 to a 7? And maybe you're bringing in 2 times more people. So then it doesn't, you know what I mean?
Right. And
That's what
that,
you're referring to.
and that, depending on your cost of goods, that's a very, very high margin, sometimes 100% right to profit, right to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Because you've already spent all the time, money, and effort to get them finally in front of you in this, final sales process. And if you lose them there, that's where you're just kicking money out the door.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's interesting. And how's that been going for you?
It's good. Yeah, I have. So with the 6-7 figure businesses, I've got a program called the $100,000 Profit Program, where we guarantee $100,000 in profits above and beyond the fees.
Oh, wow.
We charge for the coaching. Obviously, I have to be very selective about what businesses get in there. And the 100,000, I mean, it's a marketing hook. And I recognize that, and that's fine. Like, it's funny because I'll have some people say like 100,000, like I can make that on one project. That's nothing. And then to other people, it's like, oh my God, if I could have 100,000. So the point is, we're not trying to just hit that one number and leave. If your company has the capability to produce, $500,000 in new profits, then we're going to work toward that. But the point is that, we guarantee the 100,000 or we just keep working until we hit that number, and this is something I, advise anybody thinking about becoming a business coach or business advisor. You've got to have the stones, and the experience, but, put your money where your mouth is. Like so even if somebody doesn't, I'm not willing to take them on in that $100,000 profit program. But I want to coach them, work with them. I will still offer a break-even guarantee, not revenue, but like, look, okay, you work with me for 3 months or 6 months. If you don't feel like you've at least gotten this much in what you paid me in profits out of the relationship, then we'll keep working together until you do. Because it does me and my business no good to work with somebody for 3 or 6 months or a year and have them not be happy.
Yeah, because someone who's upset about the experience could be the worst customer.
Yeah,
it could lead down because the reputation we know is one of the most pretty often things.
And someone in that experience who ends up happy is likely to refer 2 or 3 other people, for you to work with. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And how would you go about the referral part for people looking to get referrals? Would you just say, hey, like our time's up? Like, do you know anyone else? Or what would be the approach there?
So, obviously the best way and when to ask for referrals is after a lengthy engagement where somebody knows and trusts you at that point. And it's a very natural process. Hey, can you help me out? Yeah. When someone doesn't know you that well and trust you at that point, then it's always good to offer some kind of an incentive. So, for instance, for those people that I don't know well, but like the idea of what I do and know me enough to recommend me, I offer basically it's a referral commission, or whatever you call it, an affiliate fee of, it's typically 1 month of whatever I engage with the client in, I will give to somebody after they've been there 90 days. I'll send and say, hey, thank you very much for the referral. Here's a little something to say thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Just curious. And then let's dive into GLO. What is GLO? How'd you get involved with GLO? Why GLO?
So if you've ever heard of EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, or YPO, Young Presidents Organization, there's Women Presidents Organization. Yeah. So I was involved in EO here in Pittsburgh for about 15 years. I was on the board for a decade. I was president twice. And and that's, some of these stories I told about the peer groups and the entrepreneur network that I had built was all, by being involved with EO. So GLO was founded by a woman who was also involved in EO and based out of Dallas. I had gotten to know her, a long time ago from attending conferences and international universities with the Entrepreneurs Organization. She was also on the board internationally of YPO. And so she founded GLO, which is Global Leaders Organization. And we've modeled it exactly after EO, YPO, WPO. So we do everything that those organizations do, but we have some additional components that we add on to that. And we also have a couple other differentiators. One is that our price point is significantly less than the other organizations. And that's intentional because we want to be more inclusive. And we're on a mission to build a network of 1 million entrepreneurs globally over the next 5 years. And the other is that we have global partners like Microsoft, Deloitte, and some very big business names on our advisory board to help grow this thing, like we know it can. So I got involved with GLO initially just to start a chapter in Pittsburgh, similar to what I had done years back with EO. And then as I got more involved with the organization, they asked me to step up and be the EVP for chapter chair. So now my job with GLO is to find, recruit, and onboard and oversee chapter chairs to start chapters all over the world.
Incredible.
Yeah. So,
and how you keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, so, the whole reinvention piece and the epiphany, hanging out with helping entrepreneurs every day, I hung the shingle with the Profit Architects. Okay, I'm back in the business coaching game. And then when GLO happened and just the way it happened organically, when I stepped into that position of doing the global chair thing, it had come full circle. So literally now I am, paid to hang out with and help entrepreneurs every day.
Wow. And how did you, for you, how did you feel like you were receptive and open to these opportunities? Because obviously, earlier in the podcast, you talked about how you were closed off during that time. How do you think you opened up and because obviously the global chair, that's a huge role. That's not even taking on a chapter of a area is a big role. So to be really open and receptive to those new opportunities, because I know people get opportunities here and there and they're like, no, maybe, yes. And they fumble around with it and they can't make a decision. So what is it that allowed you to really make the decision and made you receptive to it?
I mean, I think it comes back to, what's your core beliefs. And it took me a long time I kind of knew this early on, but then I got completely away from it. And when it came back to this idea that I need to find a way just to hang out and help entrepreneurs, then I think the universe opened to me, and that sounds a little woo, but these opportunities, develop themselves. I mean, obviously there's some component at which I earned these opportunities, just based on showing up and being authentic and being real and knowing, having some background and experience. But I think that, opportunities will present themselves, like you're saying, if you're open to it. But you've got to be more than open to it. You've got to, have the credentials to step into an opportunity and make it work. Because there are certainly opportunities that have come along that I'll look at and go, you know what, that's just not me. That's not my fit. But for me, GLO is a perfect fit. I love the organization. I love the mission. And we do some pretty incredible things. Like we have our own capital network. So we have a network of 800 to 1,000 investors looking to work with entrepreneurs on a debt or equity basis. We provide education around getting fund ready or raise ready for capital, and that's one thing that's a hard sell for entrepreneurs, because no entrepreneur thinks they need to raise money until they need to raise money. There's not many entrepreneurs with the foresight to go, you know what, I might need to raise money someday. So let me put things in place now as I'm growing my business that are going to make it a lot easier for me to raise money should the need ever arise. Very few entrepreneurs get to that place. Most are behind the eight ball at a point when it's like, oh my God, my world's crashing. I need to borrow money. I need to find investors. So we help with that process. We have a member marketplace where we, encourage members to do business with each other globally. And it's just starting up. GLO started right before COVID. Part of that whole mission, like in a chapter, what we do is we have monthly chapter events for entrepreneurs. And again, these are not like your BNI pitch fest type networking events. We bring in very high level business speakers for these events, and you make meaningful connections with other local entrepreneurs. And then we form these peer groups within GLO. The groups of 9 to 10 entrepreneurs get together every month. So there's lots of components to it that and for chairs, I'll put a plug in here so right now we have I think 13 chapters, 2 in Canada, 1 in Mexico, and the rest are scattered around the US. So lots of major markets out there in the US and all over the world if you have an interest in becoming a chapter chair. The chapter chair position is an unbelievable way to immediately elevate yourself to the top of the local or regional entrepreneurial community. You position yourself as a chapter chair with GLO, and you're going to immediately get credibility, respect, and networking opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise in your local community. So if you have a type of business that would be elevated by stepping into that kind of role, then the chair position could be perfect for you. There is compensation for the chair position. I like to say no one's going to get rich being a GLO chair, but at least, like I spent a decade on the board of EO and never got a dime for it. So at least with GLO, there's some the room
funds coming through.
There's funds coming through that then can help you reinvest and build your chapter, or you can put in your pocket. But so it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely, and I think it's incredible what you were doing, because I didn't know what you were doing for early entrepreneurs and where they're trying to raise funds. And everybody I talk to, everybody I hear, you need more money and it takes longer. So it's better to get started early.
Yeah, absolutely. And so our criteria is significantly lower to be a member of GLO, is significantly lower than most of the other O organizations. So for GLO, you have to either be an owner with 500,000 revenue or 3 employees, or you can be a hired C-suite leader if you have $1 million plus P&L responsibility. So you don't have to be an owner if you've got P&L responsibility, above that. But
very cool.
That's who GLO's designed for.
Incredible. I think it's going to be awesome. Jay, where can people reach you? Where can they hear about Profit Architect? Where can they find out more about GLO?
So the profitarchitects.com is my business website. The GLO website is withglo.com, but that's withglo.com, no W. And then I'm really easy to find on places like LinkedIn with my name, or you can just email me, jay@fairbrother.com.
Awesome. I appreciate the time, and this has been an incredible story. Thank you for sharing.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there, and have a great day, and keep clocking in.